how do we ensure that when we lead training, whether it's myself leading the training, you leading the training, so we have multiple facilitators, how do we ensure that the same materials gets across to the participants? Or what if we're doing it in different locations, right? It's happening, sometimes it's happening in the US, but other times our training has to happen over in Europe or over in Asia. Or how do we ensure that if I lead training, today, what's done today is going to be done in a week in that training or 2 months from now in that training? And that's really where your guidebook comes in, right? That's where a strong, well-crafted facilitator guide comes in. Now, the process of building a facilitator guide can sometimes be daunting, right? It's actually one of the first things people drop out and they don't create due to time. But it's also what ensures that we get what we need in the training, right? So it's like we don't have enough time, so we drop off the thing that's the most important to make sure that we can lead consistent training, and then we complain about not having consistent training, right? This is a soapbox that I could get on and I could preach at forever. So instead of the preaching, the whole idea of these live streams is to help us get from wherever we currently at to better crafted facilitator guides to ensure more consistent training across multiple facilitators, multiple locations, different dates and times of leading it, and even different modes of training, right? Whether it's virtual, whether it's instructor-led training. And so that, folks, today, that's what we're going to be talking about. And with that, let's jump into this. All right, so happy Friday, everyone. Thank you for tuning in again for another Learning and Development live stream. We are going to try a little bit different of a structure for this today. One of the things I've always kind of wanted to do with these is to have it more of a building experience for the entire community. So I would love, I want to bring in a more question and answer type format to this. Now, obviously, this is the first one, so any questions people have in regards to building out facilitator guides, in terms of structure and layout, please put them up in the chat as I'm pointing at my monitor, like you can see when I'm pointing at. But I've also I reached out into my LinkedIn community to get a few questions, so we can dive into a few of those today as well, if you guys don't have any questions. But the idea is, hopefully, as we get further and further into these live streams and people are feeling a little bit more comfortable, we can throw up some questions into the chat, and we will then be able to take some live questions. And then for this really brave people, we can actually go, there's a way, if you want to come on, I can send you a link, and probably we won't do it today, but you can join me on here and we can do, answer questions as you have them live on the live stream, which I think is pretty amazing. All right. So that being said, let's dive back into why layout and format matters in facilitator guides. All right. And it really, to me, it comes down to two things. It helps in the development of our material, and it helps in the facilitation of our material. All right. So if we look at this in terms of development, it's one of those things. So development, when I mean like the actual building of our guidebooks, right? We're getting ready to lead the train, or we need to build out a training. We need to have a facilitator guide, participant guide, visual aids, right? Whatever that may be. But in that process, having a defined structure, layout, and formatting items will help us in how we do this. Think about there was a study from ATD, and it's not the most recent one. It's actually the one from 2019. The most recent one, they changed around how they actually go about deciding what the length of time of a training. So you're no longer comparing apples to oranges, or apples to apples. You're comparing apples to oranges. But in this study from 2019, they said the average time to build out 1 hour of completed training. So think about this. It would be build out the materials, design it, develop it, have your guidebooks, have your slides, all of that. And as you guys can hear my dog behind me itching itself. But in that time frame, it was 38 hours to develop 1 hour of completed training, and it's for the classroom, and 28 hours to develop 1 hour of training for virtual. So physical 38 hours, virtual 28 hours. The other thing to keep in mind is that when it comes to building training materials, on average, people spend 50% of their time on things that aren't the actual materials. It's on formatting. It's on, formatting. It's on where do we lay things out on the page. It's on, I need to bring in pictures, and now I brought in a picture, and now it's over on page 3 versus page 2 where I thought it was. And let's just see. I think Karina here. Oh, yeah. I don't know if the dog was watching the bubbles or was trying to itch, because all I could hear was his collar going back and forth. But she's something. All right. So in regards to this, we're spending countless hours, right? If you're building 1 hour's worth of training and you're somewhere in that 38-hour range, let's call it 30 to 40 hours to build out an hour's worth of completed training. And now about half that time is spent on stuff that's that's on formatting related, all of that material. We can actually figure out a way we can save time, right? I've already talked about how 67% of the L&D profession, or 67% of L&D professionals feel like they lack the time, the resources, the money to do their job, right? So if we set ourselves up to be successful by doing certain things, right? Using formats, having templates, having a structure to build in, we can start shaving off some of that time. So one of the things we will be able to look at, and when we talk about facilitation in a few moments, and then I'm going to show you some examples of what you can do. And both of what I'm going to show is going to help both on the development side and on the facilitation. So we're going to go down one path for development and then one path for facilitation. So think about, I always like to use analogies, right? And so I'm going to use, how many people have gone and looked at, ever looked at a food blog, right? You're like, oh, I got food tonight. I got to make a dinner tonight. And like, we got chicken and we got, tomatoes. And you're basically kind of trying to find a recipe, right? And you end up on somebody's food blog. And I don't think I've ever been on a food blog that first wasn't like, huge verbose, talking about the time they went to Italy or the experiences that this dish brings back, the memories that it brings back, right? There's always this huge, long text to get through, right? And then there's pictures as they're talking. And then like after you scroll, like for me, like after I felt like I've scrolled like for 2 minutes, I get to the actual recipe, right? You figure out the ingredients and then the instructions. And then for me, usually it's like, and I don't have 6 of those ingredients, let me go find another one, and I start scrolling again. But think about that process. Every food blog seems to use that, right? It's that 90%, or I'll use my 90% rule, that we have to go through, they've got a format. They write out a story that whatever this food dish reminds them of. They put in their pictures, and then they get to it. Right? So they don't have to spend any time thinking about how do I lay this out. They've got that already structured, right? And that's the same thing. That's what we want to do with a facilitator guide. That's what we want to do with the participant guides. It's why in PowerPoint you use your slide masters so that you don't have to think about the structure of the slides. It's already in there, and now you can just worry about the material. All right. So the big thing on this is it's all about repetition, right? The more we do something repeatedly, we get better at it. And it takes me to a famous quote by Zig Ziglar, right? Repetition is the mother of learning. It's the father of action, which makes it the architect of accomplishment. And so that's the idea, right? And we know about for those who've paid attention to the forgetting curve and Herming Ebbinghaus, right? How do we overcome that? It's repetition. The more we do something, the better we get at it, right? So why are we reinventing the wheel each and every time we build out a facilitator guide, right? Sometimes it's a PowerPoint and it's the notes section. Sometimes it's just the PowerPoint. Sometimes it's a Word document. Sometimes it's a Word document with images, right? And so if we're building differently each and every time, we're not building up any repetition. We're not developing, an automatic skill set that we can apply each and every time. All right. Let me see. Just always I'll make sure I'm paying attention to you guys. So Liz, as a non-cook, that's a perfect analogy, right? I mean, I don't know however many times, like, it drives me nuts every time I go to a food blog and I see that, but I get it. It's, we want to do it and it's their style. Great. And people are going. I hope they make as much money as they can off those blogs. Kim, yeah, Zig Ziglar, phenomenal. If you guys haven't had a chance to read any of his work, go to your local library, pick up a book. They're great. And Megan, absolutely. Work smarter, not harder. It's, we always say work faster, work smarter, change for the better. So can't agree any more on those. All right. So that's the idea, right? Practice, practice, practice. The more we practice, the better we get at something, right? It's the old joke, like, how do you get to Carnegie Hall? Practice, practice, practice. So that's the idea. We want to be better about building out our materials. So we need to set a standard, and this is what we do 90% of the time. So that's the development side of it. All right, facilitation wise, right? We want the facilitator to know what to expect, when to expect something, how to do something, right? And that's how we can ensure, whether I'm teaching it, and here, I can use some visual aids for these. And I'm going to thank Snapchat. So whether I'm leading a training here in Boston, or maybe Nick's going to be leading the training up in the north, right? Or, the sergeant's leading it over at the academy. Like, if we want to make sure that whoever's leading training is doing it the same way, we want to have it written down, right? I always say things like structure matters, right? Mechanics matter. All of these things matter, and it's all because we want to make sure things happen in the way that they should, in the order that we'd go, right? Instructional designers spend all this time figuring out the best way to lay material out for it to be taught in a succinct manner. So if we want stuff to happen a certain way, we need to write it out in that manner, and then lay out our guidebooks so it's easy for our facilitators to deliver that information. All right, so things we're going to be looking at. So regardless of what's happening, or regardless of the program, things that we always want to make sure we want to include: visual cues, and we're going to see those in a few moments. The structure, and I've talked about this before, and I'll put it back up here, right? For me, 90% of the time, this is my structure, right? I have a program. My program are made up of modules. Modules are lessons, and our lessons are made up of content blocks, right? And you can use whatever terminology it is, but that, for me, consistently happens. So I know, for me, a lunch and learn, like something like this, is a lesson, right? It is a piece of a larger item, right? So if we use phone etiquette as a lesson, that is a smaller piece of a higher program on customer service, right? Which is a higher or a smaller piece within my program for new hires. And then within that lesson on phone etiquette, I've got a series of says and do's and asks and show this and play that. And those are my content blocks, right? So that structure matters. And that structure is part of my layout. All right, where am I come back here? All right, so we got structure. Things like time markers, right? How long do I want you to spend doing this, right? We're gonna be leading a discussion. Don't spend anything more than 10 minutes. Right? How do we put in that time marker? Where do we see it? Those are all the pieces that should be in there. And then also page markers, right? We want, in your facilitation, you want your facilitator to direct the class to turn to a specific page in their participant workbook for an activity or to capture notes or whatever it is, put that page number in that facilitator guide so they're not kind of one trying to talk and then flipping through their facilitator or through a participant guide to figure out where they need to take it. So those are going to be some of the key things in the facilitation side. So let's look at some examples, right? And I'm going to thank the internet and the U.S. government for putting some of their material straight up on the internet that I could pull down. So this is coming from the Department of, this is from, BLM, right? So this is the Bureau of Land Management. And this is one of their guidebooks, and it's a lesson on, in this case, it's about condescending comments, right? And so they've got a structure. I went through their entire guidebook, and they lay things out, and it's structurally built in a way that everyone can do it. So I think it's for development purposes, it's, they know what to expect. They know what they're doing, right? They're using paragraphs. They basically, and they're not even like, they're using larger text for where the lessons are, like this condescending comments. But what they haven't done is this was all in normal. So it was all in the normal style within Word. So there's no headings. There's no heading 1, heading 2. Basically everyone's gone through in here, and if you needed to change your text on this, they no longer want it to be Times New Roman. It needs to be Calibre, or it needs to be Rockwell extra bold, whatever it is. Whoever had to do that has to manually go through, highlight, and change all this stuff, right? So another part of the structure, and I've talked a little bit about it before, is, the styles that we use, knowing the tool that you're going to build with so you can make it easy for when edits come up. But so in here, right, they've got some cues like say we want to watch a scenario. There's some discussion questions. I do want to point out, this is the one that really jumped out at me, and I'm going to kind of hammer this home in a moment. But so in this lesson, it looks like the facilitator is going to have the participants watch a video that's showing a scene of a supervisor making remarks that could be taken poorly by an employee. And so they basically said, list out any comments that seem inappropriate, and they want the participants to be writing that down in their participant book. But nowhere in here does it actually say what those comments are, right? So what I find inappropriate could be definitely different than what you find inappropriate, or what, Sue over in Sault Ste. Marie finds inappropriate. So this is one, and it came up in this, and I wanted to point it out just because it was there, and it's a big one. If you ever want someone to think about, to list off or mention these 6 important steps, you need to write them down. Like, what are the 6 important steps for understanding our culture, our company culture? You better write those 6 down, because I may only know 3, right? And Bob knows 2, and Jane knows all 6, and someone else knows 7 of them, right? So that we're not getting anything consistent. So you want something to have it happen consistently, write it down. But that's kind of beside the point. So we got some questions. If I scroll down or change this up, this was the second page of it. They're leading some discussions, and then they've got some key points, right? It's laid out. It's not, well, I'll let you make the decision, right? So here's one possible layout, and this is what, you can find this right there on the internet. So here is how I would lay it out, right? So column 1, and you're seeing in my document, somewhere over in that range, I'm using visual cues. Your brain processes images differently than it processes words. So when you see an image, you know what to expect, right? So, and as we've done this more and more with more and more repetition, the facilitator is going to see that clock, and they know, here's my time marker for this lesson. Here's how long I have to teach this lesson, right? In this case, they see the little chat bubble with the 3 dots. This is something I need to say to the class, right? The one that looks like a notebook. This is something we're going to be doing in regards to the participant workbook, right? And so you can see that. So we've got this structure, visual cue in column 1, Column 2, I'm giving some sort of headline so that, again, they see the visual cue, they see the headline at the same moment they know what they're doing, right? So in that, they see the chat bubble, right? They see that, they say something like, they now know they need just to deliver within, approximately get across that message, right? We're going to watch a scenario about some crew members who was offended by your supervisor's comments, right? Simple enough. And that is a lot easier to do than pulling that out, and my finger disappears but above that, say, let's watch a scenario about a crew member. Which one is easier for you to deliver from? Which one is it easier for you to do, to quickly glance down, get the information, and be right back up in front of the group, right? We talked about page marker cues, right? So on that participant workbook, I've put underneath that icon which page I need them to turn to. So I see that icon, I see page 2, I can say, turn to page 2 of your workbook, and then I've got my little cue down there so we can take notes on what's happening, right? And then I've used this third column that's kind of, sitting behind me to provide additional information to the facilitator that they don't necessarily need to relay to the class. And if we scroll through this, right, again, like now we're playing the video, right? And obviously I made up the hyperlink. I have no idea where this video was. I mean, I actually would have want to watch it, but so the video link, it's not actually real. That was just me showing this, but this is how I would do it. Like if it was something that while I was launching on the web, I would have the link for them so they could click on it and launch it right from there or copy and paste it in. I've also provided like another cue, like, hey, we're watching a video, let's turn the lights down so it's easier to see, or, whatever those things may need to be. Again, if we come back to this, there's no, where are we playing this video from? It's not written down. I have no idea. So if I had to come in and teach this class and something like, because the main facilitator's out and like I got this book and that was it, I have no idea what I'm doing, right? If I want to have it happen, I have to write it down. And if I put it in a structure that makes it easy to deliver, I'm not going to have the same flair, and it's going to take me a while to learn it, right? Because it's the first time doing it. But I could get everything across to everybody. There'll be lots of stumbles and stuff, but it's there, right? And so if we go back, that comment I was saying previously about, if we want something to happen, or if we've got 7 steps and we want people to know them, we need to write them down, and that's coming back to this. And I'm sorry, I'm popping back and forth, and if I'm making you a little seasick, I apologize. But list any comments that they seem as inappropriate, right? The way I would structure that in my guidebook, right? I've given them a visual cue for a question, right? What comments seemed inappropriate? And then I've provided the prompt, right? Listen for, and these are the ones that were inappropriate. And if they didn't bring those up and they didn't write them down and we didn't capture them on our flip chart, I've now told you if the responses provided from the participant don't align with the list, please add them and then discuss why. Like, why are these inappropriate? Because if no one gets them, like, why do we even watch the video? Because no one got the point of it. This is how we can make sure it happens. And then this was just my the third page or the second page of the same thing. Some more questions. And if I scroll through, like the key points, right? I've got this set up, key points for employees, for supervisors. And this one I took almost verbatim from the facilitator guide, from the BLM's facilitator guide. But the whole point, like this whole structure, I'm visually able to do it, right? And how can you do this? Like this is as simple enough as within Word creating tables. Tables make it easy for us to go through, and we can set, column, that first row on the table can be whatever icons we want to use, right? Column 2, column 3, depending on how you want to do it, can then hold whether specific notes, or if we had slide images, we can put those into one place, or if we have screenshots, those can go into a specific place. but a table allows you to easily lay things out on the page. And let's just circle back here. I would say, I know which version I'd rather use as a facilitator. I'm glad, Elizabeth, me too. I'm glad you feel the same way. And then, Kim, can you please show that previous page again? I'm happy to show whatever page, and I can go back. The problem with these is there's a 15-second delay, so I'm hoping it was a page like this that you wanted to see, so I'll show it. But maybe in my bouncing back and forth, you were able to see it. And if anyone wants to see, examples of this, let me know, and I will. I can send them off to you. And then let's see here. Thank you for inviting me to the session. I've been wasting time fighting with stale format facilitator guides, and I'm geared up to make changes. Awesome, Megan. Please, any questions, reach out to me. I'm happy to help you or anybody who's got questions. How can you do this manually? You can. We did it for years doing it manually. I've got a series of software that our company offers to help make this easier. And if you ever want to see that, let me know. But you can do this. You can do it on your own. It's a little bit more time consuming, but you're going to reap the rewards. But the more repetition we go through, the more you do this on your own, that practice, it's going to become easier. It's going to become simpler to do. And your facilitators are going to understand what to expect, right? And we didn't even talk about in that facilitation right now, if you go, if your facilitator today's got to teach from this example, right? And tomorrow they're teaching from this example. And the next course is they just have a series of PowerPoint notes. There's a lot of time and energy that they're spending just trying to understand the information as they're going through. And now it affects the way, the experience for the participants. And there's a whole other side, and we're actually going to talk about it, not this coming Friday, but the following one, about basically getting your facilitators on getting your facilitator guides. Man, I'm struggling today. Getting your instructors. We're going to use the word instructors. Getting your instructors on board of using your facilitator guides or your participant books, right? A lot of times they're like, hey, I've done this forever. I don't need the guidebook, right? For that, I'd say, when was the last time you went to the grocery store and, got everything that you needed without having a list? But so we're going to talk about that. And it also stems from a question that Gwynny brought up on my LinkedIn. And it's a big one of like, how do we stop? Like you make some changes in your how you want your facilitators to do stuff. But now when the course happens, when the course is going on, something happens and they've reverted to what they used to do, which was information dumping. How do we handle those type of things? So we're going to talk about that on the 22nd, not this Friday, not next Friday, but the following Friday. Next Friday is we're going to have Mike Carnes, who is a voiceover actor. He's going to come on and talk to us about how we can get better with our own voice and our own recordings for virtual training. So I'm excited about that one. But with all of that, my goal today was to be like, I'm going to talk about 15, maybe 20 minutes on the layout and the structure, and then open it up for question and answers. And again, like 30 minutes. Like I got to practice to kind of narrow down my points. But with that, who's got questions? Let's see. So Kim, how do you get invited to these meetings here? I do a live stream every Friday. So 12 o'clock Eastern time. If we're not in, If we're not already connected on LinkedIn, let's do that. Or subscribe to my YouTube channel, which I see you're coming through YouTube right now. If you subscribe to that, you'll get notifications every time I go live. But that's going to be one of the best ways. Got my contact information on both YouTube as well as LinkedIn. We can always talk that way as well. But yeah, every Friday, 12 o'clock Eastern time. I mean, well, I think this is like number 15, which is pretty impressive, I think. But yeah, that would be one of the best ways to go about it. Let's see what else. All right, so maybe outside of the scope of this call, but once you've the formatting set up, how difficult is it to change? It's a great question. So change is inevitable, but it's also difficult. So there's one, are we changing at our level of going through and how we go about building it? Are we trying to change the way facilitator guides or the facilitators or instructors go about it? So the facilitator side, we're going to talk about on the 22nd. In terms of how about, for you making changes going about this, it's one of those, well, first one is you're never going to be perfect, right? So take on the mantra, done is better than perfect. And then it's those incremental steps, right? So, all right, I'm going to take this guidebook that I've already done, and I'm going to just set it up in a way that structurally, visually makes more sense for leading it, and see what that looks like, right? And then show it to some facilitators or show it to a colleague and say, what would you do? And so it's got to be incremental, right? It's got to be iterative. Struggling with words today, folks. Iterative, right? We make a little bit of a change, test it out, try it again. But getting people on board for the change, that's a big one, and we're going to talk about that on the 22nd. All right. So let's see here. So if we're not using the specific software used, a table layout will help format the guides. Absolutely. Within Word itself, you can create a table. You could actually save your table layouts, and now you can then go in and insert it. So it always comes in at the specific widths you need, right? Column 1, column 2, column 3, or or the depth, the height of each row. So that structure will be there. And now from there, you can go through and start putting in, using styles within Word and all of those. But yeah, you can definitely do this. Tables would definitely be the way to go. And Elizabeth, if you want to meet, let me know and we can set up some time and I can just show you some of those things. All right. Yeah. So specifically the formatting. Yeah, it's the formatting. It's kind of figuring out what works for you, Kim, and then going forward with that or taking small little steps. Let's just see. Is there a template by chance? So what I was showing is coming from our tool Leader Guide Pro, which is a tool that helps automate out a series of templates that you can customize. And we have a couple different tools based on specific needs and specific budgets. So if you want to see some of those, Liz, I'm happy to show them. Other than that, I've done a couple other videos on setting up some structure within Word itself and how to use quick parts and things like that, where you can make repeatable items. And it's, in some upcoming just short YouTube videos, I'm going to cover things like how to make a template within Word that you're able to see. But for right now, if you want to get the structure that I was showing, there's a free trial that you can try out to see if that would work for you. All right, let's see. Yep. This is coming in from the bosses right here, right? So it's coming in from the mothership, Great Circle Learning, which is our company. But yes, there are always changes. There's always ways to make changes to the formatted easily, but you do need the right tools. And really, the tools are great, right? Don't get I sell tools. Strategies and processes behind the tools is what makes them possible. What makes things possible. I could build a house right now with, a hammer and, some nails and the saw, all those things, right? I can do it manually. I can do it with power tools. Either way, if I don't have blueprints and plans and the strategies to do it, either house is going to collapse in on me. So tools are great. Strategies and processes behind them, just as important. Or you need to know how to use some of the advanced features of Word, which I can help you with. Again, coming in from the mothership. Kathy, thank you for joining. Yes, I'm glad you're enjoying Leader Guide Pro. We use Leader Guide Pro. Certain formatting is already set. I'm brand new to my role in Leader Guide Pro, so my question is regarding making this formatting changes specifically in Leader Guide Pro. Gotcha. Yes, Kim, we can do this. You can do this within Leader Guide Pro. Let's set up time and we can show you how to do that specifically in that. We also do have the Leader Guide Pro user group, which is meeting this Monday. So if you're interested about that, let me know as well. But with this, obviously we've had a whole bunch of questions and interactions. Thank you. I hope this new format, and we'll get the question and answers going better. I want this to be more for answering questions that you have with a little bit of what I have to say, to kind of kickstart it. But, any questions you guys ever have or anything you want me to cover on one of these sessions, I'm happy to do so. But with that, I want to thank you for joining me this Friday. Have a great weekend, and I will see you guys all next week. All right. Take care, folks.